Good afternoon. It's October 26th, 2024. We're critiquing the news. The article on your screen is from the Cairns Post and it's titled A Climate of Concern. In grade 7 in 1974, I was brainwashed by a climate alarmist teacher. This young lady was fresh out of university, one of the first university trained teachers who did not do the school-based apprenticeship and the teachers college that was traditional for teacher training, and that was the era where the Marxists had taken control of our universities, and she was one of the first full-blown climate alarmists, genuinely believing the absolute abject nonsense that we now call global warming and climate change. But the scare back then was the coming ice age. But just 8 years later, it was flipped to global warming, which I thought at the time, 1982, to be a bit, well, strange. Not that I thought too much about it, because I had been brainwashed fairly convincingly by this young lady. She was a very attractive young lady, and she had a big effect on all us pubescent boys. But global warming, they said, would melt the ice caps and cause rising seas, and climate scientists were certain of it. By 1989, this exact newspaper that I'm commenting on here was running front page stories about Cairns being the Venice of the North by the year 2000. But it never happened, and nor did more frequent, more intense cyclones, nor did the kids won't know snow meme ever take effect. In fact, since 1982, we've been blessed with cooler, milder weather than we had in the decade each side of Australia's federation in 1900. Now, while I was mildly concerned about the colder/hotter scare stories of big climate alarm, I wasn't left mentally scarred by it. However, by sheer persistence, the climate alarm industrial complex has now created a mental health crisis in 2/3 of young people. That's an absolute disgrace. The academic quoted in this article says young people are concerned about catastrophic weather and have anxiety about the future, which is called climate change anxiety or eco-anxiety or eco-grief or climate doom. The academic says we have seen the impact of reef bleaching, bushfires and floods. It's significant for so many young people. And it's also a complete fiction. Even if man-made CO2 could trap heat, which of course it can't if you look up Planck's law, Wien's displacement law, Kirchhoff's law of thermal radiation, the second law of thermodynamics, and Stokes' shift, you'll see that the best that CO2 can do is intercept outgoing infrared radiation at an altitude where it's so cold, it's minus 80 degrees C, that the best it can do is slow down this outgoing radiation for a billionth of a second before the increased vibrational energy of the CO2 molecule is translated into a lower wavelength radiation by Stokes' shift and is re-released to continue its inevitable journey to outer space. It cannot re-enter the hotter areas below in the troposphere. It particularly cannot get to the surface. Now, even infrared generated just above the surface of the sea can't heat water to bleach corals. The best it can do is evaporate the top micrometer of water, which has a net cooling effect in the same way that evaporating perspiration does after you've been for a run. So the next item mentioned here was the bushfires. Well, bushfires aren't reliant on air temperature, so yes, they burn better on hot days when it's dry and there's a strong wind, and I'm a fire brigade incident commander, so I know this all too well. But they also burn on the Arctic tundra, where there's green growth up in the Arctic Circle, and it dries out at certain times of year, and it carries bushfires which travel for hundreds of kilometres. And they're not the result of climate change or of air temperature. They're the result of neglect by land managers who fail to reduce fuel loads. And of course, by failing to clear the bush to allow grazing and logging and firewood collection, they create the fuel loads that then cause bigger fires, and then they point to this mythical global warming and blame that, and they put extra taxes on you and send your best jobs and industries to Asia and gradually deindustrialise your nation, send you into poverty. The other thing he mentions here are flooding. Okay, well, flooding was a reality long before humans harnessed hydrocarbon compounds as fuel. In fact, some 6,000 years ago, a biblical character by the name of Noah dealt with a particularly large flood, and to the best of my reading of the Bible, there was no use of coal, oil or gas in that era. Anyway, it's been a fiction all the way through, so it's misinformation and disinformation. Climate alarmists have been blatantly wrong, and as this article says, if it's to be believed, they've harmed our children. These people are child abusers. Every academic, bureaucrat, politician, corporate CEO and activist responsible should be investigated, tried, found guilty and jailed. It's not okay, and we're not going to get rid of this ridiculous, debunked, disproven narrative until we put the uni party, the Labor Liberal uni party, out of our parliaments. Just can't see it happening because people are so deeply brainwashed. Such a shame. It all gets worse from here unless we start to realise that we've been lied to on a massive scale.